east of the continent, we found one of the most exotic places in Africa, Kenya. Today, with the pleasant company of Her Excellency Jean Kamau, High Commissioner of the Republic of Kenya to South Africa. How are you today?
Very well, thank
Excellency?
you. Yeah, thank you.
As the High Commissioner of the Republic of Kenya and South Africa, how have you enjoyed the experience of your diplomatic tour thus far?
It's been great so far. South Africa is a really interesting country. It's great to be on the continent and to be this far in the continent and to experience the diversity and this amazing landscape and very rich country in terms of history and culture and a lot to do. So I've enjoyed myself really much. Thank you.
What are the main fields of collaboration between Kenya and South Africa, and how successful have you been pursuing new agreements, new treaties between both of the countries?
One of the key areas of interaction and relationship between Kenya and South Africa is really trade-driven. It's shared by the sheer size of the South African economy gives them the added advantage that they can penetrate the rest of Africa pretty well. So we've seen over the years quite an influx of South African companies into Kenya. And because of the main areas of penetration have been in financial and insurance services, so you find the major South African banks, insurance companies are present in Kenya, and then that becomes a basis also for other companies, South African companies, to come into Kenya. So you find the trade areas where there's a lot of interaction and continuous movement of South Africans in and out of Kenya, and also strong trade partnerships develop between South Africans and Kenyans. So a lot of Kenyans now, quite a number of Kenyans professionals and technical experts work for South African companies. They run their businesses for them in South Africa in collaboration. We find also the movement of finished products, manufactured products out of South Africa, importation of, and vice versa. We're finding also raw materials also from two countries. There's quite a bit of growth in that. And we're looking forward to that improving and becoming better. Air services, both our airlines are doing good business. Kenya Airways does 5 flights a day into Johannesburg and Cape Town, and South African Airways is also competing in that on that route. So there's a good business architecture that's driving both our countries' economies. The trade imbalance is currently in favor of South Africa, and it's something which, again, has a historical background on why that is so, and it's an area that we're working constantly to improve and have an equitable balance between us. But we appreciate learning a lot from this economy in terms of technical and manufacturing expertise, and is an area we want to encourage more South African companies to look into, having more smart strategic partnerships with Kenyan companies and Kenyan businesses where we have a good technical exchange. In the last 5 to 10 years, we've signed quite a number of agreements, and again, these are around the area of trade, defense, biodiversity and environmental management, immigration to again improve the access and movement of people. We've also new agreements on the area of agriculture, food production, and even on tourism as well. So, and there's still other outstanding. We'd love to have an energy agreement, for example, because we want to go into coal energy. We want to learn again from South Africa's experience. We're also looking into transport. Want to again see how we can benefit from South Africa's own experience from the transport sector, the BRT in the different urban centers. So we're negotiating new areas of trade and expertise, so that we can again continue to strengthen the economic areas of our two countries' relationships.
I personally refer to Jomo Kenyatta as the real father of Africanism. Being both countries, South Africa and Kenya, sharing the common grounds of Africa. How do both countries act together on international and regional forums such as United Nations and the African Union?
Founding father of our nation, the late President Jomo Kenyatta, was one of the Pan-African leaders in the African continent at a really critical time when a lot of African countries were changing from colonial administration into independent states. So he's revered and considered to have really set strong pillars for the Kenyan independent state in the 60s. And in that, at the time that he was president, he led one of the key leaders in our liberation struggle. So they framed the first pillars of the African diplomacy. What was it going to? They had the challenge of defining what was going to be the African diplomacy that was going to be driven by these independent states. So they basically appointed the first foreign ministers that walked into the UN in the 60s. And to a large extent, our foreign policy has remained very much Africa-centric driven, that we believe in a strong Pan-African diplomatic effort that looks at having a strong, secure and peaceful Africa that is able then to articulate a strong self-determination, that all countries are able to drive their own agenda, to really work around strong socio-economic development frameworks. And because of that, we find it resonates also with what the rest of African countries are doing. So you find with South Africa's foreign policy, Kenya's foreign policy, the self-interest, of course, is prime. That South Africa has its own foreign policy interest, Kenya has its. But we find there's a common convergence. We believe strongly in peace and security and work towards that within the AU. We believe in strong social economic development of our countries, and so the trade relations and our economic diplomacy for both countries has a strong component around that we use a multilateral framework that drives our countries' national interests, but also the Africa-centric. We want to see more trade happening in the inter-Africa paradigm, and I think how we engage in SADC, how we engage in East Africa, how we engage in SAC with the different multilateral frameworks, again, is driven by this common understanding. But I think in terms of foreign policy, there's a lot of convergence that you'll find between Kenya and South Africa. And recently, especially on peace and security, we have very similar interests on how Burundi is going to span out, how is South Sudan going to span out, the interest in even terrorism. Which is a new area of concern for all our countries, that even if South Africa is relatively safe and immune to some of the skirmishes and the tensions that we face close to Somalia with Al-Shabaab, that there's still a need to have some of our defense cooperation is actually around how can we strengthen our own defense systems so that we can support each other in modern areas, in terrorism and so forth. So there are common synergies, there are common areas of interaction in our different foreign policy, and we do engage a lot within the multilateral space. I think bilaterally, we've had an exchange of our presidents visiting, and for years back. Recently, President Zuma in 2016 came to Kenya. In January, President Uhuru Kenyatta was here. And even within the side meetings, the issue of our foreign policies, it takes center stage, and we always discussing what is going on within our regions. How can we, as two anchor countries, South Africa in the South SADC region, Kenya in the EAC region, how can we use our influence to anchor and influence changes? Yeah.
Presently, in the major economic forums such as Davos, the most debated topic is about how does wealth reflect in the population of the country. Kenya has the largest GDP in Eastern and Central Africa. Is this reflect in the integral growth of its citizens?
Well, I think the issue of disparities within any population, and I'll tell you why. we have disparities, there's no doubt about that. The level between the top earners, poverty levels will confirm that we have that disparity. However, the interesting issues, so what are the mitigating factors? How are we going to address poverty eradication within the context of the government policies is really the issue that comes out of every electoral the electoral promise when we have a new government coming in, that poverty has to be addressed because it has consequences for the country's development, and nobody wants to live in poverty. So everyone's doing how are we going to improve our life, and we have really sound economic policies around that. To first of all, to create employment, get people out of poverty, create an enabling economic framework where citizens can engage within the economy. So we support a really strong entrepreneurship, skills development, job creation along sectors of the economy that can drive, sound economic changes within everybody's life. And government does that through so many measures. Recently we adopted a very simple economic framework on 4 key agenda issues. First of all, we want to drive manufacturing as a key sector of our economy, where we move from the current 15% to 22% in the next 4 to 5 years. And in that economic framework, we see that we can create 1.2 million jobs, and it breaks down something like 729 jobs a day, right? And how do you do that? So first of all, create the kind of environment that there's value add on simple things around food, like even agribusiness, and looking at very specific areas of the economy where simple technology, simple effort can be added in to improve, so that you have more, self-made entrepreneurs who can take up the challenge of becoming manufacturers or to improve the quality of their lives. It's not easy, but you see, if you have an economic environment where people can engage and be self-reliant, then they will take up the challenge and improve their lives. Kenyans are very hardworking. That's one of the things that you'll find. I find, people who do business in Kenya will say, Kenyans don't look at the clock at 5. Is the job done, right? And for people who do invest in Kenya, will say that people are hardworking, they're skilled, and they want to improve their lives. So you take that spirit and you want to use it. And outside the other challenges, that of course it's not all that perfect, but it does work. If there's an enabling environment, people are supported to improve their lives, government provides the necessary framework, credit is accessible, training is possible, and the opportunities are there, then that's one of the ways to deal with it. But there are also safeguard measures. We're not a social welfare country. So the only recipients of welfare, you have to be over 70. So you've got to work to get to 70 so that you can get a check from the government, right? So the safeguards are, there's a strong drive for self-driven determination to improve your life. And, and that's where we find the effort is for the government to match that with the right policy framework. Yeah.
From your words, we get the impression that the common denominator, unfortunately, in the continent has become poverty, lack of education, lack of good services on a health area. And the alternative for many countries becomes tourism. Millions of visitors come to your country looking for the safari experience. Could you elaborate on your country as a tourist destination and highlight its attractions?
Actually, if you don't mind, before I talk about tourism, I was talking about the 4-point agenda, which I didn't finish. Okay. So one was manufacturing, the other one was healthcare, and then there's housing and food security. So in all those four big agenda items, there's opportunity for us internally and also for FDI, foreign direct investment, to see a platform for them to support the fight against poverty and rural development. So I just needed to say that to finish. But tourism, yes. We have an amazing landscape and tourism opportunities in Kenya. We have snow-capped mountains, we have sandy, white, beautiful sandy beaches, we have so many opportunities for tourism, and because of that, it's a thriving area of our economy. And I speak that as one who has enjoyed those facilities from when I was a child. So what do people find attractive about Kenya? First of all, is that you can go from a high-end, top-end tourist experience to a low-end community ecotourism, where part of your tourism experience is to actually live and work with a community and contribute and leave your footprint in that community. So the whole area around ecotourism and making a huge, so it's memorable in what you experience, but that you leave your footprint. You can adopt an elephant, a baby elephant, if you want, and experience that. So as I was mentioning, of course, the Masai Mara is huge for us, and migration, which starts in July and goes on all the way into October, is something that a lot of people come to experience. And then, of course, mountain climbing, you can do it in Mount Kenya. Then there's fishing, you can do it by the lake. A lot of South Africans, by the way, come to a town where I live called Malindi to do marlin fishing. And in fact, our national carrier used to do a direct, during the season, they would have a flight from Johannesburg straight to Mombasa because of the traffic. But that, I'm not sure about the numbers anymore. We see a lot of interest in, the kind of tourism where you hop to different destinations. So you have like 2 weeks and you experience from the coast to the mountains to the parks. So there's a huge, huge variety of efforts. And I think the fact that our carrier airline is doing 4 flights out of Joburg and 1 out of Cape Town speaks to the numbers or the traffic that goes between Kenya and South Africa. So it's a great tourist destination with a lot to offer. And we have like a whole year-round kind of excursion that people can enjoy. Our low season is April to July, but partly because I think of the weather which we share with the cold season. But otherwise we have a great turnaround.
Okay, and just to finish, High Commissioner, I'm going to give you a very difficult, compromising question.
Right.
Same question I have
I'm sure
asked.
you want to ask it.
I want, it's politically incorrect, but I have to ask it.
Okay.
I have asked the same question to people from Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Botswana about the Victoria Falls. So now I'm going to ask you, where is Kilimanjaro?
Right. It's actually on the border between Kenya and Tanzania. So we claim a bit of Kilimanjaro because if you're in Amboseli, I don't know if you've been to the Amboseli Park, Kilimanjaro is right in front of you. So how can I not say it's in Kenya? So there's a bit there.
Thank you so much.